celebrating the power of possibility.
I'm Joe Hollingsworth, and I believe anything is possible.
Welcome to another edition of Anything is Possible. These are great stories about great people whose lives prove that anything is possible. And I was out at the beautiful Aspire. Do you call it a park or you just call it Aspire?
We actually tried to abolish the word park from us because we didn't want to be associated with federal or state parks in people's minds and attitudes. So we just try to go by Aspire.
I was at Aspire in beautiful, you're right there in Clinton, just a fantastic space. And it just made me feel so great. And I was like, dadgummit, Joe Hollingsworth, when you set your mind on getting something done, and we go way back.
Oh, absolutely.
We go way back. I had the delight of my life of being in Leadership Knoxville with you, and we became fast friends, and you've always been such a great friend, inspiration, and mentor, because sometimes you can have a mentor, you don't talk to them a lot, but if you just watch them move, you learn a lot. So thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. We did this, as you know, 17 years ago, which was a transitional part of my life then, and it was really empowering to do the show with you because you so adamantly believe in anything is possible.
Yeah, you said you went back and watched that show. What did you see?
Well, Brenda and I, much to my surprise, she wanted to surprise me with it last night, and just to refresh my memory, and it was so empowering. I thought the best part was your ability to ask questions that seemingly weren't offensive, but probing. And so there was no defense that anybody puts up. It's just a natural attribute of yours, but the questions were so good and delightful that it just makes people want to open up. And so kudos to you, what, 23 years now?
Yeah, 23 years. What was one of the questions I asked you then that when you were watching back, you said, hey, wow, what a question?
As you will know, very few people ask those kind of questions in life. And so very few people know the story behind the story. But a series of questions were like that. But one thing that you did ask that I thought was really good was how I could pass along something to folks that are young and starting their way, but don't know how to get there. Mm-hmm. And I probably ought to update that some with fresher thinking or more experience, but that was, I think, just to the point where people need to be nudged a little bit and have just a little better direction. And the outcome is so much better if they just try.
Let's go back to the beginning of your life. Clinton, Tennessee, this is home base. I think what I always loved about you was your belief in possibility. Like, you would figure out something you wanted to do and you would do it. And if I remember correctly, following in your father's footsteps, mm-hmm. you were like, I'm gonna build stuff. So you built your first house as a teenager?
Yeah, I'd worked on Dad's construction jobs. He was a hardware man, but I'd worked on his construction jobs since I'd been about 12, and just carrying lumber. But you learn so much. So every summer I would do that, and by the age of 15, he and I split. He did the financial part, and I did the building part, split a home. And so actually, our son did the same thing at the age of 15. I had to orchestrate that a little bit, but not much. But we split the profits on the first one. Then I went to court to have my minority status removed so I could hold property legally at the age of 16, and so I began building then. But
you started building houses at 16.
I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but it just came as kind of a natural thing. And evolution does that to you. It's not really a revolution. It's just a lot of small steps.
So Is that something your father wanted you to do?
Actually, he was indifferent.
Really?
And I think that kind of sparked me more. Just because he would like for me to do it, but he wasn't demanding at all like that.
So 8 years in, you've built over 100 houses. I mean, you were blowing and going. Is that what you thought the possibility of your life was going to be? And what was your education at that point? And did you think, okay, this is the way I'm going, this is what I'm going to be, this is the contribution I'm going to make?
Hal, that's a very insightful question, because I got most of my education through osmosis, just being around my family, who were all small business people and contributed so much to their respective communities. And so I just, from the age of 8, when I could remember, all the way up to 15 or 16, at every family reunion, and there was a bunch of them, I'd get backed into a corner and, well, what are you going to do and how are we going to do it and that kind of stuff. So it was inspirational from that aspect. But I just naturally fell into real estate and urban development at ETSU and UT.
Possibility powered by Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel.
Now you can listen while you're on the go with Anything is Possible, the podcast.
What did you learn about business? What did your family teach you about the fundamentals of how to make money and how to do business? Are there a certain set of fundamentals that you learned early on, like this is how you run a business, this is how you make a profit, this is how you grow your wealth?
It doesn't matter what business you're in. I've been in maybe 20 through the years, different businesses, but it's almost always a cookie cutter. So you make the dough and you get the cookie cutter and you pick the shape you want that cookie cutter to be in, which is the designation of the business and how it needs to be delivered. And you just simply turn them out. So there is a template, but every business has got a lot of hot points that you need to learn quickly. So one thing I would encourage anybody to do is, you think you know your industry and you're already in business or you're going to be in business, you need to drill down and understand what made previous people fail and what made previous people succeed beyond their expectations. And just learning their stories, you don't make the same mistakes, or maybe not as often. But from there, you have to put yourself on a learning path every step of the way.
That's one thing that I noticed about you throughout your whole life. You were always, you want to learn what's going on right now. You want to know. You're always learning. You're always figuring out new ways, new wisdom to solve problems. I mean, you have an insatiable appetite for wisdom and growth. What have you learned about money?
Managing money as far as yield or investing?
Both.
Okay, well, there's a lot of people that are paid, that are in the system, that will merchandise you anything or try to sell you something. They probably have a vested interest. So you have to understand it from that standpoint. How does he get paid? So if they're a wealth generator or recommender, then you need to understand how their commissions are generated. Is it turnover, or are they earning money as you earn money? It's pretty innovative. If they earn a piece of your action, then you know they're going to be working for you just like you'd work for yourself. It's the commission-based people that are, everything gets cloudy and murky. So you have to understand the motivations of the people selling you things. And then you have to, and I'm not terribly good at this, but you just have to learn to call a spade a spade. Either it's going to perform or it's not. And then I try to always understand when we invest for longer term, we drill down on, well, is that CEO married? Has he been married a long time? Has he got kids? Now, give me the top officers. What kind of prototype there? Or is there a whole bunch of controversy around upper management? How can they ever be focused like that? So just understanding the fundamentals behind you making the decision to put money in or not turns out to be very indicative of your likely outcome.
Yeah, you watch results. Like, that's one thing I know about you. You are a results man. We can talk about it all day. You believe in action and results. That's something I know about you 100%. So
Thank you.
But the other thing is, we have on the table here a hat with a rabbit in it. We took a picture with you taking the rabbit out of the hat because you pull a rabbit out of a hat. So let's talk about you making this transition. You're building homes, and you're building a lot of them, and you're good at it, and you start to move into the commercial space and convenience stores, and you have somebody that is not performing, and you end up having to take over the convenience store. Now you're running a convenience store, and I guess the brand is Get and Go, which still exists to this day.
Sure.
But you had to learn a whole new business. And
Overnight.
This is another example of you take the hand that you're dealt, and you figure out a way to play it. Tell me about that experience.
Well, 17 years ago when we first talked about this, it's rewarding to think back on it, but at the time, trauma. Like, hey, you're not going to be paying your rent anymore, and I've got payments to make at the bank, and here's the keys. So they hand back the keys, and I just worked overnight all night long to come up with a name that was catchy, realizing that we were going to have to do it. I wasn't going to be able to. Convenience stores were very new at that time, and so I wasn't going to be able to pass that along to somebody else and hope they were going to rent it. We will celebrate our 50th year this year. Crazy, isn't it?
That's just insane.
Yeah, it's when you live long enough, you get a lot of awards that maybe you don't earn, but they recognize your age, so you get awards and things. But that has been characteristic of your life and your interviews that you do with people, that empower them to plant that seed in others, and I hope that we have contributed somewhat to that. But just to take whatever you've got and just reach out and make something happen that nobody expects that you're going to be able to do because you've done the research. It's not that hard. People can do it.
But see, that's the thing. I was telling somebody the other day that the ultimate act of leadership is optimism. That thing of, it's not that hard. We can figure this out. This belief that something can be. Where did you learn that?
A lot of that is self-taught. If I had been smart enough to read the proper books back then, I probably would be better at this. But you have to be optimistic. In most anything you do, you have to be optimistic. But you have to have the energy to be optimistic. And so every day, well, actually 3 times a week, I would play racquetball. That gives me the resiliency and the energy. And you would have energy rebound, so you'd be good all week long. You have to have some determination. So I read the Wall Street Journal at 5:30 every morning, between 5:30 and 6, and then feet on the floor and make something happen. While I'm going to take a shower, I just have a little notepad, and I write down 3 or 4 of my top things that I can leverage up that day. And so just going through that motion, warming up your brain, and so whatever those 3 or 4 things are going to be high leverage. Because after my cup of coffee and a lazy lunch or something, I won't be high energy enough to take care of those leverage things because they're harder to do. So you want to do it when you're fresh and
Explain high leverage items. Is this something, this right here, if I do these 3 things, it's going to move the needle. This is not busy work. These are important things that are linchpin things that move the needle. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You're going to work on emails anyway. You're going to work on the mail anyway. You're going to get to that. Figure out what the 3 highest leverage things you can do in return for your investment of time. And so maybe with me, it would be a reach out to an attorney friend that has got a certain knowledge base that I am deficient in. And that I want to know a little bit more. Maybe he's on a deal or whatever. Maybe it's reach out to a banker. Maybe it's just reach out to a friend or a family situation that needs better understanding on my part. Sometimes it's reach out to figure out how I can grow a little more. But it is so important to do those high leverage things that will enrich your life. And they lead to so many different directions.
You know who told me the same thing, same advice?
Who is that?
Pat Summit.
Oh my gosh, she was such a wonderful person.
She said, I do the hard stuff early in the day. And she said 2 or 3 things. She said, there are 2 or 3 things that if I attack them right out of the gate, and they're things that I don't, you know who else told me this? Phil Bredesen.
Both of them were great individuals.
Phil said, I need to be doing the things that only I can do.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
And there are 2 or 3 things today that nobody else can do, but they leverage the whole thing. So, all right, so in building your commercial, I think you have over 19 million square feet of warehouse space around the United States of America, and you have learned that business. Like, that's your thing.
Yeah, thank you. We're in 18 different states. Our son and I split a company, Hollingsworth Capital Partners, and so he's got more diversity of size, but he's mainly downtown and metro areas. I'm outside metro areas where it's close to an interstate, and by and large, our guys are very profitable, so they want to grow or they want to expand. So it's enabled us to meet a lot of perfect role models. These guys are great at what they do. I just need to rub elbows with them.
Did you ever imagine that you would build a company that big, that would have that big of a footprint and impact?
No, I'm just a little boy from Clinton that's fumbling along trying to find my way. So, but every day if you get just a little bit stronger, it's not growth like this. It's exponential growth, and some deal leads to another deal, leads to another deal, and soon you're doing things that you didn't know that were possible. Anything is possible. But those will continue to lead deals. At 74, you kind of run out of runway. So you have to be careful to siphon off just exactly what is the most meaningful. And while it's not about profit, particularly now, or greed, it's more about how can we impact things.
Now, take us with you with Anything is Possible, the podcast. Stream new episodes weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's talk about, you wrote a book. One of the things that was smart that I thought you did was you reminded people how great the South is, place to do business. Talk about just casting vision for people, because that's what that book was about.
Well, thank you for remembering. We have sold substantially less than 1 million copies. But I won't write another one. It's a lot of work. But it worked out great with our company's main theme. I didn't originally envision that, but the Northeast is where most of the media is, and so they only like to write about the Northeast or what the country does overall. They don't like to write about different sections. So now as we've gotten more media in the South, we're profiling very well for the last 50 years now, profiling very well against other sections of the country. In fact, the South within itself is like the 4th largest economy in the world, if it's just calculated by itself. But it's what pulls the United States out of a recession the first, and it is a section, it will always rebound better and achieve more in results and growth. So it comes out stronger after every recession.
Love the South. I absolutely love the South. Let's talk about junior achievement. So that's one of the things that you've really believed in, really poured into. I remember when you guys were building the little, what do they call it out there?
BizTown.
BizTown, BizTown. Yeah. I remember when you were on fire about building BizTown. Talk about investing in young people.
Well, I know public schools have their own mission, and hopefully it gets better and better with public schools, but the word that has fallen out of favor with public schools is the word risk. That is not a 4-letter word by itself. What that is the enabler for other things that they teach. Maybe they learn clarinet, but they learn the value of risk. Maybe this person wants to be a clarinet maker. You don't know where that'll go, but you need to teach risk. So we felt like that was way undertaught, and at the time, we were the 29th in the world BizTown, Junior Achievement BizTown. It was a proven program. There's 3 in Tennessee, believe it or not. But now I think we serve like 26 counties. They've just taken over Upper East Tennessee. But 100,000 fifth graders in 20 years, 100,000 fifth graders have gone through this program. Just imagine capitalism being seeded with them. And they actually play roles in small companies that are devised to...
That's what I loved about it. I loved the whole concept of it, young people being able, but then that was your life. You're 15 years old, you're building houses, you actually are in capital markets, you come to understand capitalism, then you come to understand the opportunities and possibilities it creates. That may be one of the things that is most important to me about gentlemen like yourself and people like yourself is dreams live inside of dreams. And what I mean by that is
powerful.
If you accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, you put thousands of people to work, and those people get to work on the things that they dream. And so sometimes if a person doesn't deliver on their destiny, they're holding in suspension somebody else's destiny, because they were going to go to work for Hollingsworth Capital Partners, and they were going to learn the business, and then they were going to go on and do something else. I always wanted to do a study to determine what is the asset value of a life well lived. You take a Pat Summitt, you take a Bill Regas, you take a Joe Hollingsworth, and you take all the people that grew out of their companies, and what is the total financial impact over a lifetime. One person that does $500 million or $1 billion or $200 billion worth of business really is affecting trillions of dollars worth of impact.
How true this is.
When you map it out. Let's take a break. Part 2, because this demands a part 2. Part 2, I want to talk about Aspire. My guest is Joe Hollingsworth. This is Anything is Possible.